Hi everybody, it's Maya Zahira with Psychic Protection Sanctuary, and we are now live in our free Facebook group, Psychic Protection Sanctuary Facebook group. I want to welcome everybody. If you are watching this part of the video, you're probably watching the replay. So I just want to take a minute while the people on the live are still joining. I want to just take a moment to say hello to those of you watching the replay, most especially those of you on my YouTube channel, Psychic Protection Sanctuary YouTube channel. And also I've got YouTube, the video transferred into audio and posted onto podcasts all over the place. So hello everywhere. If you are somewhere where you can make comments, like on the YouTube channel, I definitely encourage you to share your personal stories. And of course, if you're here live, for those of you who are here live, you can actually share your stories by typing in the comments, and I will read your comments during our live class. Today's topic, I think, is super interesting and fascinating. Our topic is animals as omens. Now, I'm especially going to be focusing on animals as omens of psychic attack, animals as negative omens, animals as indicators that there is some type of negative spiritual interference going on. But I will make a few mentions about some positive omens as well, because all of that can happen. So we have not done a Facebook Live in a while. Long story short, I live out in the country, out in the sticks, and there were some technology issues. So that was one of the reasons why we kept changing formats, and that's fine. It was all great and wonderful, and now here we are back on Facebook Live, and I actually really like Facebook Live. So let's get back into our usual routine. Those of you who used to do Facebook Lives with me, do you remember that when you first join, you can say hello to the whole group and share where you're joining from, because that's kind of fun. Now, as we're preparing to do that, I want to just give a loving reminder, because I share this video later on YouTube and other platforms, just really as a gift to the community. Because this class really is for those of us in our free Facebook group. So the YouTube channel is a different audience. I love you guys on all of the audiences. The people on YouTube sometimes get annoyed at how we have bantering on here in the Facebook Live. But you know what? This is a Facebook Live. This is all about getting to know each other. We definitely have some interesting content that we're going to touch on today. But hey, you have the privilege of being able to get behind the curtain and watch our class from our Facebook group, which is not a public group. So I hope you enjoy it. And if you don't like this format, go find a different channel, because this is how we do it on here. Lots of love to everybody out there in YouTube and other places. So go ahead and share where you're joining from. Today's topic is animals as omens. We were going to do a general Q&A. That was what I planned on before I went on my holiday break. Last couple of days, I was feeling into the energy of our group, and I was like, I don't think that's right. I don't think we're supposed to do a general Q&A. That just the energy didn't feel right for that. It felt like we needed to have a topic. And I had a list of topics in my lesson plan notebook of future potential topics, and this was the one that really popped out. I have some interesting stories to share, and you might have some too. So as soon as I turned 50, I needed glasses. So you're going to have to put up with crazy old lady glasses. And just for fun, I will make sure to have really fun and funky ones for you in the future. I'm looking for your comments. Sometimes they don't always come through on Facebook Live. That is one negative thing about it. Okay, let me go through some really quick some announcements as quickly as I can, and then we will get into our lesson for today. Go ahead and say hi and let us know where you're joining from. Okay. All right, couple of quick announcements. So let me see what I haven't already said. Okay, we have had this class on the first Tuesday for a while, and we're going to continue to have it on the first Tuesdays at 5:30 Mountain Time. When we have daylight savings time, the time alters by an hour, but right now it's at 5:30 Mountain. Adjust for your time zone. And we have a different topic each month. And for the foreseeable future, we will be on Facebook Live format, not on Zoom, not on any other formats that we used to be on. So if you want to join us live, those of you who are watching the replay, you do need to join the Facebook group, Psychic Protection Sanctuary Facebook group. Okay. Okay. So there are 2 ways, or 3 ways really, that you can receive support. And I'm going to go over those very quickly, and then we're going to get into our topic. So the first way that you can receive support is by purchasing one of my books on Amazon, either Darkness Disguised as Light or the Psychic Attack Sourcebook. Both of those books have a lot of information, and those books are out there in the universe for people who are in a position where they really want to work independently on their issues, or they're in a position where they can't really afford to sign up for a group program. And I get it. Not everybody can. And that's why I put a lot of time and hours into those books. So you can find those on Amazon and on Audible. The second way that you can get support is by being in the free Facebook group. And we have a free class every month. The third way that you can get support is in my group mentoring program. And you can find information about that at psychicprotectionsanctuary.com and click on Work with Maya. And that is it's a very comprehensive program. And what I have seen is that people who join that program, if they've been having chronic issues with psychic protection problems, they resolve it, like permanently. And I see other people who have had long-term psychic protection issues who are trying to piecemeal and figure it out on their own and kind of put stuff together by reading my books, which is very helpful, but then they kind of get stuck because their issues are too complex to figure out on their own. And then a year later, they're still stuck and dealing with the same issues. Other people who've joined Spiritual Empowerment Academy have resolved their issues. And then the people who are trying to piecemeal and do it on their own are still stuck. So I just wanted to point that out. I've seen that phenomenon over the last couple of years. And so if you're independent, you can read the books. If your issues are not very serious, you can probably get everything that you need from the books. Or if you're not ready yet to join the academy, maybe you need a couple of months to get things together, you can start with the books and apply everything that you can from the books and then join. Or join right now. So it's up to you. Okay, you guys, I've had this happen before where my comments are not coming through. So if you are posting comments and I'm not reading them, I'm really sorry because I'm not seeing any comments. I see a lot of people here live. So hello to everybody. and could be a technical issue. And I used to have that happen in the past. That's my only complaint about Facebook Live. Okay, so I'm going to jump right in, and we'll just figure out the comments as we go. Okay, gotta get a slurp of tea. Today's topic, animals as omens. As most of us know, animals are sensitive creatures. They're sensitive to energies. A lot of people know that our pets, our dogs, cats, etc., can pick up on when there are spirits in the room, positive spirits, negative spirits, when there are weird things going on energetically, our animals will act weird. But there are a lot of instances also when wildlife will act strange when there's negative energy, or the negative spiritual forces will prompt the animals to act weird. So the animals are being controlled by negative spiritual forces. So I'm going to give some examples. Before I jump into the negative examples, I want to just touch on some positives. And I want to acknowledge, I have this feeling you all have been commenting like crazy and I'm just not seeing it. So continue. If you're sharing comments, go ahead, because you probably all can see your comments, each other's comments, and we'll be able to see it on the replay. So let's start off with, if you have any positive experiences where your pets or other animals were responding to a positive spiritual circumstance, or you received some kind of a spiritual sign because an animal acted a certain way, feel free to share your story. And if you're watching the replay on YouTube, on that forum, you can share as long as you want to, really long story. And if you're sharing in the live, just share a couple of sentences. Okay. All right. So I have a couple of quick positive stories that I'll share, but I have a lot more negative ones, which are super interesting. So positive one that happened a couple months ago, I was sitting outside on the property where I live, out in nature in southern Arizona, and I will often sit on my back deck and say prayers and work on speaking aloud what I want to manifest, what I want to create in my life. So on this one occasion, I was speaking my prayers out loud, and I was also saying blessings and sending gratitude to the property, to the land and all the creatures, all the animals out here. And then I stopped and I just sat for a moment. And then all the coyotes in the area just started howling and yipping, and they were clearly, like, it was very happy sounds. And I literally have never, I mean, I do hear them pretty often, but not like that. Like there were tons of them. And it was like this big celebration of happiness. And it was awesome. So that was a positive omen. It was like the spirits of the land, the animals of the land saying, yes, we like it that you're here, and we're all friends, and everything is good. I had something similar happen with birds a few months prior. Similar story, was saying prayers and asking for certain things to manifest. And then there were all these ravens, not crows. Ravens are larger. All these ravens came. It was a small group of them, and they were flying in a circle together right above where I was sitting. It was pretty cool. So that was, in both instances, it was an affirmation and confirmation that that my prayers were being heard. So you may have had instances like that where something happened that affirmed for you that your prayers were being heard. I'm trying to figure out what is going on with comments. Let's see here. Nope, that's not it. Okay. Well, I'm just going to keep right on trucking. Okay, so now let's talk about some negative omens. And so just to reiterate that animals can respond to energies, and they can also be controlled by negative energies, which I will illustrate in some of my stories. And, this can affect both our pets and wild animals. Speaking of wild, I have some wild stories to share with all of you. So I'll start off with the shorter stories. And these are, even though these are stories, this is valuable information. I hope that you take these stories as examples of the kinds of things that can happen, so that if anything similar happens to you, you will right away understand that this could be a negative omen. And it's not about being scared. Like, I have noticed sometimes people will see an animal out in nature and they'll go, oh no, like they see an owl and they go, oh no, that's a bad omen. So I think owls are good omens, but like they see something like that and they're like immediately in like a terrified state. I don't think that's a good route. But I do think that it's important to understand when a negative omen could be happening and to stay grounded and then be informed that maybe there's something happening and I need to address it. Okay? So the first little story that I'll share is that in 2016, when I went through a very major psychic attack that I talk about in my first book, Darkness Disguised as Light, there was a very powerful entity that had been working with a local healer, pretending to be a council of angels. And this entity did not like me. And long story short, I was under attack. This was a very dangerous and nasty entity. This was not just some little lower level thing. And the negative omen was, or one of the negative omens, there were many, was that on one particular day, I was looking all around. I couldn't find my 2 cats that I had at the time. Looking around, calling for them, couldn't find them. And then I thought, well, let me open I had a side door that went out into the garage. And there was a cat door in that side door so that they could go in and out into the garage if they wanted to. They rarely ever did, though. They would stay in the house because the garage was cold. I opened the door, and there they are, sitting. So from that side door, you would go down like 3 or 4 steps down onto the garage floor into the garage. I open the door and I look, and there they are sitting at the bottom of the stairs, looking up at me like, Mommy, we're too scared to come in there. And I was like, oh my God, like I've never seen that expression on their faces ever before. And they were clearly afraid. And from their body language, they did not want to come in the house. That's never happened. So that's an example of pets responding to an entity issue. They could also respond similarly if there was a psychic attack happening. I've got another story, and this was a couple years ago when I was living in Arizona. I had been living with someone temporarily while I was waiting for my current place to become available. I'm not going to go into too many details, but it was not a good fit. And one of the reasons was that the person was not very grounded, and they were very much in denial of any negative spiritual forces, and therefore it was very easy for negative forces to take them over and control them. It's a very long story, but behind closed doors, the energy there got super weird and super dark, especially at the end when I was preparing to move. There was a lot of demonic energy in the house. And it was, by the end there, it was major spiritual warfare happening in that house. There was one particular day, or there was one particular night where I had a nightmare. I'm not going to go into the exact details of it at this point. I'm probably going to write a book sometime in the future about this situation, but I had a dream that indicated that something bad was going to happen if I stayed there another day. And the movers weren't supposed to come until Friday. This was Monday morning. I woke up and I said, I gotta escape this place. Like, I cannot stay here. At that time, I had one cat, and I loaded my cat up in the cat carrier, loaded up my overnight suitcase, and I brought a cot with me because I didn't have any furniture at the new place. So I brought just what I needed, got into my car, and I was like escaping, literally escaping. And the thing is it's a long story, but like how that even was allowed to happen, because how it got so bad. I am very careful about the energies that I allow around me, and I keep the energy in my home clean and clear. And the problem was that living with someone else, I didn't have, the other person had free will, and the other person was doing what they were doing. And that was why the spiritual situation got dangerous. Okay. So I get in my car. I'm like, I got to escape this place. Right. And there was a lot of energy trying to get me to stay, to not leave that place. Okay. To like be stuck there forever. That was one of the reasons why I couldn't find a place. I looked for 9 months while I was staying there. I couldn't find a place because I was being blocked. So, and that's an important aspect of the story, because there was this blocking of me being free of that situation. It was like a prison situation. Like, you have to stay trapped here in this place with this negative energy. You're never going to be able to leave. This person wants you to stay here forever. And that was true. That person did want me to stay there forever. And I wanted to get out. So I get in my car. I drive around the road. It's kind of like around in like a half circle. And then it was kind of like in a big S to get out of the neighborhood. But here's what happened. I come around the corner. I come around the curve, and I am not exaggerating. There was the biggest raven that I have ever seen, with its wings spread open. I had to slam on my brakes. This raven swooped. It was up in the sky. It swooped down to the road right in front of where I was driving. It swooped down and up back up into the sky. And I think there was a dead animal right there. But it was so dramatic that I watched this, and out of the corner of my eye, I also saw a man who was doing yard work, and he had some kind of yard work equipment in his hands, and he stopped what he was doing, and his jaw dropped, and he was like, so even he was like amazed. It was, I can't describe how dramatic it was. It wasn't just like a normal, like, oh, a bird just came down. I mean, how many times have we been driving and a bird is like eating something in the road? Like, that's normal. I'm not talking about this. This was hugely dramatic. Okay. And in the moment, I immediately recognized there is an energy that's trying to keep me from leaving this neighborhood. So first, the raven swoops down. I'm going to try again and see if there's any comments. There's so many of you here live. I'm so sorry I can't see your comments, because I can see all your names. So many people. So glad that you're here. So it wasn't just that the raven swooped down and forced me to stop my car. Then all of a sudden, there's this backup of vehicles. It was like 8 vehicles in front of me. And it's in this like neighborhood out in the middle of nowhere. I've never been stuck where I can't get out. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm never going to get out of this neighborhood. Like, there is something keeping me stuck here. Well, long story short, I finally got out. I was able to hit the road and get to my destination. So that was very dramatic and freaky. And I did feel like I was in danger. Absolutely. The whole situation, and I've left out probably thousands of details out of that story. It really needs to be in a book of its own, but it's not the right time. I need to wait on that. So here's another example. And one thing that we need to understand is that insects and other kinds of vermin and pests are very often controlled by dark forces. So it's not uncommon for like a swarm of bugs to attack a person if there's some kind of attack going on. Or in another story, I'll share about some other pests that were involved. But with this particular story, this is very, very short. This was after I went through the psychic attack in 2016. At this point, I was still getting a lot of downloads, spiritual downloads, and learning a lot along the way. And so I didn't have the crystal clarity that I do now. And so one of the things that happened was I was sitting out at the park when I still lived in Kansas, and I was doing a video about what I had gone through in that psychic attack. And I started getting attacked by like this whole swarm of, I figured out later that they were oak mites. And if you know about oak mites, when they bite you, like you feel the bite right then, but then like over the next few hours, it turns into welts. And over the next few days, like they just will itch like insanity. So your arms, whatever they were biting on, it's just like torture. It's not like a mosquito bite that itches for a while and then it subsides. It gets easier over time. These tend to get worse and more inflamed. Well, so this whole swarm of them was biting all over my arms as I was trying to hold my phone and do this video and do that video. Once again, I didn't have all of the knowledge yet about how animals and insects can be controlled by dark forces. But that was a clear example. In hindsight, I see it as a clear example of how negative forces were using nature to try to get me to turn off the video, not do the video. It was one of the first videos that I put out there about why I talk about and teach about psychic protection. And in the video, I do mention like, oh, I'm getting bitten by bugs, but I'm keeping it real. I'm going to keep going. But I was like getting eaten alive by those bugs. There are a lot of examples of people who are interfered with, are messed with by swarms of bugs. It's a very common thing. Now, sometimes it's natural. There have been other times when I've been out in nature and there have been bugs and it's just a normal thing. My gut tells me, though, that because it was really over the top, it was literally a swarm came and just was eating me alive. My gut tells me that in that instance, it was not a normal aspect of nature. Yeah. Okay, so I've got one more story to share with all of you. And this one is the craziest of them all. And I'm going to try once again. Comments. I hope this issue resolves itself. I don't see. I'm going to try one little thing before I get into my next story. I'm going to post my own, I'm going to say hello in my own comments. Hello. Does that make any comments come through? No. I'm going to be I'm sad because I know this has happened before, that when I go and watch the replay, you guys have so many amazing comments. So at least you all are probably seeing each other's comments. So that's great. And so those of you who watch the replay will, on Facebook, you'll be able to see the comments. And on YouTube, you can share your own stories. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to share one more story. This is probably another book in itself as well. So I'm going to leave a lot of details out. This is various different really weird things that happened with animals, starting on the day when my biological grandmother passed away. Now, I think that so I was adopted when I was a baby, so I was not raised by my bio family, but I'm pretty sure that they don't agree with my assessment. That's fine. I respectfully have my own interpretations and understandings of what I personally experienced. So the morning that she passed away, I did not know yet. I had not been informed yet that she had passed away when the first weird animal instance happened. But I want to give a tiny bit of context first. And remember, I'm really shortening this story here. The context is that my grandmother and I had a difficult relationship, and there were some very unusual spiritual elements about my origins and about me being put up for adoption, and there was a lot of darkness in the biological family. There were some very unfortunate things that happened where there were dark forces causing harm to my biological family. It's my understanding that a lot of that was then passed on to me. And for a lot of complicated reasons, my grandmother and I had a difficult relationship. And there were things left unresolved when she passed away. there were challenges that I was having with my health that it's my understanding that she did not believe me. She thought that she had a story in her head that I was making things up for whatever asinine reason. I don't know. And that was very upsetting to have a period where I was so sick and in so much pain, and members of the family didn't take it seriously, and there was no support. So it was hard. So the day that she passed away, I didn't know yet that she had died, and I was sitting outside on my back deck. Let me check the time real quick. Okay. She was sitting outside, reframe. I was sitting out, maybe she was too. I don't know. That's possible, actually, considering the story. I was sitting outside on my back deck. I was doing my usual morning meditation and prayers. And all of a sudden, I heard this really loud sound that I had never heard before. Now, I live in southern Arizona, desert area. There are rattlesnakes here. I have not encountered any except for on this one occasion. But that wouldn't be unusual, considering where I live. So we need to keep things in perspective. Just because we have an encounter, even one that's a little bit scary, that doesn't mean that there's a spiritual attack going on. But in this case, I really think there was. So what happened was I heard this sound, and it wasn't like a baby rattle. It wasn't that clear that it was a rattle sound, but it was something. It was like a hissing sound, but actually now in hindsight, it was like the rattle sound, right? I stood up and I was looking what is that sound? And I saw two snakes intertwined. I can't do it with my fingers, but they were intertwined, and they were standing vertical, straight up and down. So they were not on the ground intertwined. They were straight up and down. And I found out later that it's possible that they were mating. That's why they were doing that. So one of the snakes was rattling really loud, and they were both intertwined. And as soon as I stood up, now I was not close. I was not that close, but I was close enough that I could see. It's possible that my presence, standing up, and my movement distracted them. And they started to come unwound. They came unwound, and then one of them went under the bush, and the other one, I watched it slither to under the deck that I was sitting on. Oh my God, there's rattlesnakes all around me. I was a little bit nervous about walking in my yard after that, but I haven't had any rattlesnake encounters since then. Now, as a standalone situation, I didn't immediately assume that it was a negative omen. Snakes are natural. A snake, even a dangerous snake that you don't want to get bitten by, can be a positive omen. I mean, it's transformation, and it's just a part of nature, right? So I didn't assume that it was a negative omen until more stuff happened. And before I go on to the more stuff, I'll just say that later, once I put all the pieces together, I saw the symbolism of the snakes intertwined and coming apart, that it was symbolic of DNA, the genetic connection disconnecting as she was passing on, my connection to the family. I had already done a lot of disconnecting from them, because what family doesn't care if you're about to die and they're not going to do anything? That's really bad. And so out of positive self-regard and self-love, I said, I don't need people like that in my life. That hurts me. So I'm fine. I'm focusing on the people who do care about whether I live or die. And so I had already disconnected from them. I had already somewhat cut off contact, but not completely. But that unweaving of the genetic connection was really interesting. And that didn't come to me until I pulled an oracle card a few days later that literally had an image of two snakes interwoven, and the top of the card said DNA, and then it said ancestry. And I was like, oh my God, that looks just like the snakes that I saw. And that was not a random coincidence. It was nature showing what was happening. Then, starting that night, so I found out at about 4 p.m. by text message that she had passed. And that night, starting that night, and for the next few weeks after that, my house filled with spiders and scorpions. Now, I live out in nature. Sometimes you get spiders, sometimes you get pests. I have seen nothing like that. It's been, a year and a half since that happened, and I had lived here for a year prior to that happening. I've never seen, so it's been a couple of years that I've lived here. I've never seen anything like that here, where the house is suddenly filled with these things, except right after she passed, starting that night. And in some of my interviews, when people have asked me to talk about this story, I've gone into more details of like waking up in the middle of the night, walking into the bathroom, and like freaking out because there's stuff in the bathroom, and it's like, oh my God. Yeah, it was very freaky, and the whole energy in the house was weird and creepy. And it's the only time that I have not felt comfortable in my home, because I go out of my way to create energy that's clean and clear and beautiful in my space. And I don't allow my home to have creepy energy. And yet suddenly there's all this creepy energy. There was something else that happened. There were a few more things that happened. And it was the next night, I woke up out of a deep sleep, and I know I was not dreaming, that this was, I was absolutely awake. And I also, after this thing happened, I got up and used the restroom. So I was walking around. I was definitely not asleep. I woke up because there was a wild animal. I do not know what kind it was or what was happening, but there was something right outside my bedroom wall on the outside of the house, some wild animal that was making this awful sound that it sounded like a baby was being tortured to death. Okay. Now, at first I thought it was a baby being tortured to death right outside my house. But my logical mind said, you know what, you live out in nature. The next morning I Googled, and I asked something like, are there animals that make a sound like a tortured baby wailing? Because it was like, literally sounded like a terrified baby wailing. And those of you who have had babies, who've had young children, you know that they have different kinds of cries. They have their cranky cry, their I'm tired cry, their I'm hungry, I don't feel well, etc. And you learn to recognize those cries. And then they have the cry that says I'm hurt or I'm in danger, right? I mean, this cry, it sounded like this baby was just terrified. it sounded like, I honestly thought a baby was being sacrificed to Satan outside my door. It was the most awful, blood-curdling sound. But again, the next morning, I went online, I Googled, there are a few different animals that live in my region that are possibly native to my region that are known to make a horrible sound like that. And so, who knows, maybe it was actually a baby, and I hope that it really was not. But our topic today is about animals, and what are the chances that an animal, during that time when, honestly, I do believe there was a psychic attack happening from my grandmother and toward me, and what are the chances? I've lived here for 2 years. I've heard coyotes, I've heard happy coyotes, I've heard other little animals, and it's a happy little Disneyland out here. Of course, there's snakes, and there's, you got to watch out, but it's just like normal nature, right? And then all of a sudden, there's all this like really bizarre activity. It took me a couple of days of like being smacked upside the head by, oh, I got a comment. Yay, it's working. Okay. It took me a couple of days of being smacked upside the head with all of these like really horrible, animal omens to finally admit, because I didn't want to think this about her or about anyone, that I think this person, I told some friends it was like a drive-by sliming. I think that on her way out, she sent a bunch of energy slime my way. And remember, there was a history of a lot of darkness in the family. So my whole birth and origins were connected with this dark energy that had infiltrated the family. One person who interviewed me asked me right away, well, was she a Satanist? And I said, no, she was not. She was a quote, good Catholic lady. I really don't think that she thought to herself, I'm going to psychically attack Maya. Like, I don't think that she thought that. I think that she was angry, and she did not have good feelings about me when she was passing on her way out. She had perceptions of me that were incorrect. I don't even understand why, but I do believe that what happened to me was a drive-by sliming by somebody who was leaving the planet. In my work, I've worked with clients and students who have had relatives who've been psychically attacking them from the other side. This was my own firsthand experience of it happening like real time as she was passing away. So I just want to say, I don't mean any disrespect to anyone on the other side, to her or to any of my ancestors for what I've shared. But it was rather unpleasant, and I don't think it was very nice. I think that people need to be aware of the energies that they are sending. And she sent major slime my way. It took me about 6 weeks to get my house cleared. And remember, with the work that I do, I keep the energy in my home and on my land super energetically clean. And the fact that she mucked it up so bad, like it took weeks. So, and thankfully that was a year and a half ago. And there's none of that energy left. It's all better. But that is some weird animal stuff. Catherine says, yikes, I'm sensitive to sounds, especially anyone in distress. As an empath, OMG, panic attack. Yeah, I was scared when I woke up in the middle of the night and I heard that animal. It was an animal scream. It sounded like a baby screaming. Like my heart was pounding. I was like trying to figure out what was happening. Yeah, so just to recap that story, we had the intertwining snakes, which was the DNA coming undone. Like, you're no longer a part of this family. And then house filling with scorpions and spiders, like to the point where it was freaky. I was afraid to sleep I didn't know what was going to be crawling over me. And then the screaming animal. So that was all in one story. I've never, as far as I can tell off the top of my mind, I don't think I've had any other situation where there's been so much condensed animal activity. So thanks, Grandma. That was really not very nice. Thankfully, I have the tools to clear all of that out. And obviously, I've done a lot of ancestral work. There's still more to do. But those are some kinds of things that can happen with animals. So, all right. I'm glad to see that a comment came through. I don't know if my comments are broken or if that was just the only one that came through. Let me slurp my tea. Okay. I'm going to give an opportunity if anyone has any questions, any thoughts. I'm going to make a couple of quick announcements. And if nothing comes through, I'm going to go ahead and close off for the night. We've been going for about an hour. Okay, we've got another comment from Catherine Empath. She says, scorpions? I'd have to sleep in the bathtub with a towel under the door. LOL. And we've got more comments coming through. This is great. Well, Catherine, some of the scorpions were in the bathroom. When I got up in the middle of the night to go pee, which a lot of us do in the middle of the night, they were in the bathroom, crawling on the ceiling. It was like a weird horror movie. Yeah, and Jamie says, this has been a really, really, really good topic and discussion. Thank you for sharing, Maya. And it looks like there's some responding to some previous comments that I didn't see. So it looks like some didn't come through. And this might just be a Facebook glitch, so hopefully it'll be fixed next time. Let's hope and pray. So again, my apologies. It looks like, I'm guessing there were comments that came through that I did not see. But it looks like you all got a chance to see each other's comments. I definitely encourage, if you're watching the replay, wherever, YouTube channel, Facebook, definitely share your stories. These are just my stories that I shared, but there's so many. Oh my gosh, I'm sure you all have fascinating stories. So take my stories or the ones that you're reading in each other's comments and use those as examples of possibilities to watch out for. Remember that we don't want to jump into fear. I've seen a lot of people do this before. They have an idea that a certain animal is always a bad omen. I don't believe that. I actually don't. I think nature is nature. And I think we need to allow animals to just be and use our gut instincts to tell us if in this instance, maybe it's negative. And I'll give you an example. So I talked about the raven swooping down when I was trying to escape the horrible living situation. And I'm going to say this jokingly, but it's really not funny. If you've seen the movie, the Stephen King movie, oh shoot, what was it called? Misery. About the guy that's stuck in a snowstorm, and this lady rescues him, brings him home, and she's taking care of him. And it's like she's very codependent, and she doesn't want him to ever go. And she so much doesn't want him to ever leave, that she traps him there and she breaks his legs. Now that I didn't get my legs broken, but I actually had other people point out, like when they would come to my house and they would observe, and they would be like, this feels like the movie Misery. Like, and I hadn't even told them anything about what was going on. Mom was the word. I hadn't said anything. And they were like, there's something wrong here. This is like the Stephen King movie Misery. And I'm like, yeah. So anyway, I was escaping this like Stephen King Misery story. The raven swoops down. But yet that same week, I was packing up a few things into my car here. I was getting ready to make a trip to Tucson, about an hour away. And I was thinking, I had just been through this major ordeal of moving. And I'm like, okay, is it energetically safe for me to make this trip? So I go out, I start putting things in my car, and there was a raven in the tree. But this time so of course it wasn't the same raven as the place I was moving away from in Tucson. But I look over at this raven, and I was like, okay, is this positive or negative? Like, is this a bad sign? Should I not take my trip today? And I looked at it and I realized, this raven is my friend. This raven is here to support me. Like, ravens can be symbolic of dark energy, but I realized this raven is just here holding space and helping protect me from that dark energy. And it just sat there with its head tilted, and it just looked at me with its eye as I loaded my car. Instead of running away, or instead of flying away like you'd think it would, it just sat there on the branch, and it was my little friend. And that was, I took note of that because I was like, this is a really good example of how a raven, or fill in the blank, whatever animal, doesn't have to be all a negative omen. And now I love working with the raven archetype. But there have been other times, I won't go into any other stories, but there have been other times when ravens have shown up to let me know that there was some, I was on the road one time and I got out of my car and there were these ravens, and I knew, there's something negative afoot and I need to pay attention to that. It wasn't anything super dangerous. It was just like, FYI, you need to do some clearing because you were exposed to something. Yeah. So it was helpful information. So anyway, back to my original point being, take these stories that I've shared, that other people have shared, and use them as examples to help you discern and understand what's happening with the animal situations, whether it's your pets or wildlife, whether it's positive omens, negative omens. Just always be aware of not jumping to negative conclusions or fear-based conclusions. Okay. Jill says, gonna have to go. Sorry, I have to be up in 5 hours. Well, I'm glad to see that there are some comments coming through, and hopefully the glitches will get resolved. Well, this was really interesting. I loved talking about this topic. I think this is really interesting. I can't wait to see your comments that I wasn't able to see. I can't wait to see the comments that show up in on the YouTube replay that I'll post later. And let me just see if there's any announcements I need to make. Okay, just a couple reminders that we will have this free class the first Tuesday monthly. We're going to continue to do that. So mark your calendar. If you are here in the Facebook group, then you can join us live, which is the best way. The replay automatically posts like 2 or 3 minutes later. So if you can't join us live, the replay is always available. So here's the nuts and bolts though. In the Facebook group here, you have access to the free replay for a week. And then after that, I remove it. And then you have to, good. So after that, I remove it. And then, so if you want to see it, you have to watch it during that first week, or join my Spiritual Empowerment Academy, where they have access to my video vault with all of these replays. They have ongoing access to that. But you have a whole week where you can watch it. And then the YouTube channel, I usually give them like a day to watch it, and then I pull it off. So if you're watching this on YouTube, take a mental note that when you see a new video of mine, you need to watch it like right away, because it's gonna get pulled after about a day. Yeah. So let's see. Melissa says, what about seeing owls in the middle of the day? So owls are an animal that some people have a lot of emotional charge over. I don't think that seeing owls in the middle of the day means anything. I think it's just seeing an owl. I've seen owls in the middle of the day lots of times. But here's the thing. We all have our own library, so to speak, of symbols and what different things mean for us. For some people, owls mean a certain thing. So I would turn it back to you and say, do owls mean a certain thing to you? Or what is the context of what else was going on when you saw the owl in the middle of the day? Was it just nature being nature? Or were there indications that there was something weird going on? Like, was there some kind of were there other indications of negative spiritual interference? And if so, maybe the animal was an omen. So that's a great question, because it just reminds us that sometimes nature is just being nature. An animal might show up in a place where it wouldn't normally be, or it shows up at a different time of day. But, sometimes it's just nature being nature. Nature isn't always predictable. Yeah. So for everybody, whatever questions that you have about any animal, look at the context of the rest of the story. Was there any other indication or feeling that there was negative spiritual interference? If not, it may have just been an owl in the middle of the day, or it may have just been an animal doing whatever it was doing. Yeah? Okay. So there's not a definitive answer to that, but I hope that makes sense. Catherine says, thank you, Maya Zahira. Ilya says, it means you saw a light owl. Yeah, so it could be a positive omen. And Melissa says about her owl question, it didn't feel negative, but I thought owls slept during the day. Yes. Yeah, I should have clarified. Owls are nocturnal. They are usually out and about at night and at dusk hunting. They're not usually out and about during the day. So that is why I assumed that question that you're asking is really relevant, because you were pointing out the animal is acting differently than we might expect it to, because it was out in the middle of the day. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everybody. This was really interesting. And definitely stay active in our free group. I love our group. I'm going to do a video at some point with our other group admin, Stephanie, who is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. She is the one who helps answer a lot of your questions in the group. Our clear intention within the group is to provide a space where people can feel supported, where people can be around others who have had similar circumstances, because let's face it, the regular world of muggles they do not understand these kind of situations, and it can feel very isolating and it can feel really hard. So we've created the Facebook community, Psychic Protection Sanctuary, so that you can connect with others. And Stephanie is the one who answers most of the questions. I pop in now and then, and I do try to answer a few things here and there, and I kind of oversee things, and I work with the energetics of the group as well, helping bless the energy of the group. Most of my focus on answering questions is in the paid academy, which you can find out about at psychicprotectionsanctuary.com. I actually get into the paid group, the paid academy, twice a day, and I answer all sorts of questions. So they get my personal one-on-one answers to all sorts of things. So let me read one more, I think, and then we will head out for the night. Catherine says, I always felt so lucky to see an owl because it's not very common. Yeah, that's been the case with me too. When I see an owl during the day, I'm like, oh, cool. And I just stand there and try, like, I'll pull out my camera and try to get I'll expand the view and try to get a close up so I can see it. I think to me, it's a blessing. It's like it's a cool thing. We should talk about, I don't know yet, not sure what our next topic will be, but possibly we might talk about weird weather and other natural phenomena. I need to look that up. I used to be an English teacher, so I try to speak good. Anyway, I had a situation a couple of days ago where there was a very unusual nature situation that is not common for my area, and it was super weird and creepy. We could probably talk about that and other, weird weather and weird nature situations. That would be very interesting, either next month or at some point coming up in the next few months. Linda says, thank you for this, Maya. Catherine, LOL, and I misspelled a word. I don't care if you guys misspell words. When you're online and you're using your finger, like, it's hard to get things spelled right. Thanks so much, you guys. It's been wonderful connecting. I'm glad the comments are coming through now. And also lots of love to the people on YouTube and everyone else watching, and definitely share your stories. This topic today was really about stories. It's about learning from one another's stories so that you can put it in your mental file and recognize possible issues, spiritual issues going forward into the future. Thanks so much, everybody. As always, sending you lots of love, and see you in next month's live class.